Good morning, everybody. I hope you're well and you had a good weekend. So this week is Children's Mental Health Week, and the theme of that is Express Yourself. And today's assembly is all about what we mean by mental health and what we mean by express yourself. I'm also going to explain to you what our value for the month is for February. So let's get started, shall we? So what does express yourself mean? Well, expressing yourself, if you have a look at the pictures on this slide, you can see all sorts of things that children and young people are doing. So maybe some artwork, some photography, playing musical instruments, dancing. You can see lots of different ways that people are expressing themselves. And it's about finding creative ways to share your feelings, your thoughts or ideas through things like art, music, writing, dance, making things that make you feel good. It's not about being the best at something. It's not about putting on a performance for other people. It's about expressing yourself in creative ways and ways that you enjoy. And obviously what one person enjoys might be different for somebody else. So one person might really enjoy art and drawing and colouring, whereas other people might find that quite stressful. Whereas some people like dancing and moving around, other people might not enjoy that. So we all express ourselves in different ways. I like to express myself through music. I enjoy singing, and quite often I make up silly songs at home. And that's just one of the ways I like to express myself. And I also like cooking, and that's another way that I express myself, is being creative and not always sticking to recipes and trying new ideas. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But part of it's the fun of experimenting and exploring. So why does finding healthy ways to express yourself matter? Why is that important? Well, finding creative, enjoyable ways to share our thoughts, our feelings and our ideas can make us feel good and help our mental health, especially when we face tough situations or difficult times. So I suppose you could say we're kind of going through quite a tricky time at the moment with lockdown. And just as we need to try and look after our physical health, our bodies, by doing things like exercising, eating well, getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, we also need to look after our mental health, or our minds. And one way of caring for our mental health is to notice and share how we're feeling. Now, that could just be by talking to somebody about how you're feeling. But expressing ourselves in creative ways can help us to do this. And sometimes it can be hard to find the words to explain how we're feeling, but by being creative, that might be another way of showing how we're feeling. So in the first lockdown, which was a challenging time for lots of people, you might have seen and heard that some people were doing lots of creative things to get them through, like gardening, growing plants, doing like mindful colouring, drawing, reading, writing, making models, dancing, baking, lots of things. And you might have done some of those things yourself as a family that help cheer you up and make you feel a bit better. So you can probably think of lots of ways that expressing yourself makes you feel good. And I know I've spoken to you before about how sometimes in our house we just put on a piece of music, and as we start moving around, our dance moves would not be winning us Strictly Come Dancing or any competition for that matter, but it makes us feel good and we start laughing and it puts a smile on our face. And sometimes if we're feeling quite grumpy, it can be the best way to express ourselves and to actually helps lift our mood. So how does being creative and expressing yourself make you feel? By looking at these photographs, you can see that we're all different and we can find different ways, different creative ways to express ourselves. Sometimes that might make you feel good, happy, relaxed, excited, connecting with others. Sometimes something as simple as singing and somebody else joining in with you can make you feel connected to that person. So we all have different things, as I've said before, we all have different things that make us tick, that make us feel good. And what works for one person doesn't always work for somebody else. So it's important that we find different things that suit ourselves, that suit us as ways to express ourselves. And I think it's really worth remembering that when we express ourselves, we don't have to be the great artist or a wonderful dancer. It's not about being the very best at something or putting on a performance. So let's encourage each other to find lots of different ways to get creative and express ourselves. And later on, I'm going to share a story with you. Well, it's not really a story, actually. It's a book, and it's called Beautiful Ups. And I'm going to share that on the Facebook page later. And it's a book that shows that we can be creative in many different ways, and sometimes almost by accident. So look out for that story later. Well, it's not a story. I have to keep reminding myself it's not a story. It's a book with some ideas in, and it helps us to understand that we can be creative in all sorts of ways, and even in ways that we hadn't imagined. So how can we help and support each other to get creative and express ourselves this Children's Mental Health Week? Finding healthy ways to express ourselves creatively is one way of looking after our mental health. So there's lots of things that you can do this week to look after your mental health, be creative and express yourself. From thinking about what you wear and expressing yourself through your clothing, to expressing yourself through art, through music, through model making, through dancing, through photography, through writing, all sorts of ways that you can express yourself. And this week we'll share lots of ideas with you of different ways that you can express yourself. So I'm going to share with you something called a 1-minute squiggle game. There's a feelings drawing challenge that I'm going to share with you, and I encourage you to find different ways that you can express yourself and any ideas that you come up with that really work for you. I'd love to hear about. Now, if we were in school, or if we were all in school, I mean, I know many of you would catch me in the playground, or you catch me in the corridor and you say, Mrs. Milner, I've discovered a really good way of expressing myself, and you'd come and tell me. And it's a little bit harder to do that with so many of you at home. But do remember that I can be contacted on email. So I'd love to hear your ideas of ways that you can express yourself, because it is good for our mental health. It does help us to express our feelings and show our emotions perhaps in a different way. So lots of you might know, some of you might not know, that I play the piano, and that I actually did a music degree as part of my training after I went to school. And one of the things I really enjoy is playing the piano, because it can be really soothing. And there's times when I might play a gentle piece of music, and that can help a sense of calm. But there's also something that's quite therapeutic. It makes you feel quite good about bashing those keys. Now, I don't just mean thumping the piano, because that's not very good for it, but finding a piece of music that is quite loud and that requires quite a bit of energy to play. And sometimes if I'm not feeling quite so calm, it actually is quite a good way of expressing how I'm feeling, expressing that perhaps a little bit of frustration, or expressing that that feeling inside is good to get out on the keyboard. But you know, lots of us have different ways of expressing ourselves, and I'd love to hear how you express yourself. So do remember to send in your ideas and your thoughts about how you express yourself, and look out for more ideas this week on our Facebook page. Okay, so on to our value for the month in February is gratitude. So let's have a think about what we mean by gratitude. What is gratitude? Well, here's a definition: a quality of being thankful, the readiness to show appreciation for and to return kindness. You might think, well, that's a lot of words. What do those really mean? But it's about being grateful, being thankful, being appreciative of people, but of what we have in our lives. And so there is quite a close link between how grateful we are, how thankful we are, and how good we feel. So here's a little drawing just to remind ourselves, and a little end to our assembly. I want you to think about what you're grateful for, because it's known that being grateful can have a positive impact on our mental health. and our thoughts and our feelings. So the more grateful we are for the things around us, for the people around us, for the things that we have in our lives, the happier we can feel. And at the moment, it could be very easy to start thinking about all the things that aren't quite right. So I'm looking out the window at the moment and it's slightly damp outside. So it might be, oh, we can't go outside because it's raining, or we can't go to school. And it's very easy to dwell on the negatives. But by thinking about things we're grateful for, it can help improve our sense of well-being and our happiness. So today, just as we introduce our value, I just want you to think of 3 things that you are grateful for, 3 things that you're thankful for, 3 things that you appreciate, 3 things that they could be tiny things. I'm going to give you some examples so you know what I mean, because you might think, but there's nothing to be grateful for at the moment. And I'm going to show you that it can be the tiny things. So I'm grateful for the fact that when I came into school this morning, one of my colleagues made me a cup of tea. I didn't have to go and make it myself. So I'm really grateful that somebody knows exactly the drink I like to drink and they made it for me. So that really put a smile on my face this morning. I'm grateful for the support of the fantastic teachers in the school, because this morning, everybody I've spoken to has had a smile on their face and a can-do attitude to all the things that are going on. And as a head teacher, with lots to cope with and lots to deal with, that's really, really good to see happy colleagues. And I'm grateful that this morning I had the best cuddle with James before I came to school and he went to his school. So I'm grateful for cuddles. So here we go, 3 things. None of them are the biggest things in the entire world, but a cup of tea, smiling faces, and a cuddle. 3 things to be grateful for, and 3 things that make me realise that there's quite a lot of good stuff going on, even though it might not feel like the easiest of times. So your challenge is to think of 3 things that you are grateful for. Do that today. You can write them down. And did you notice that when I talked about them, I talked about what it was about them that made me grateful? So I didn't just say I'm grateful for cuddles, but I talked about how it made me feel. I didn't just talk about a cup of tea, but it made me feel cared for. Okay, so have a think today about 3 things you're grateful for and the reasons why. And you could write them down if you want to. Okay, everybody, well, have a really good day. And I will see you next time with lots more thinking about expressing ourselves and about gratitude. Okay, bye for now.